Good morning. Welcome to Business Minds. I'm Cindy Bird.
And I'm Melissa Smith.
We're so glad you chose to join us this morning as we close out the month of February, where our theme has been Infusing Heart into Your Business. And we focused all month long on topics that are associated with individual well-being as well as workplace well-being in recognition of American Heart Month being in the month of February. And we've worn our red for all of our shows.
We have depleted our red wardrobe.
As we promised, because we, as female business owners, we want to support particularly the Go Red for Women movement and highlight the fact that heart disease is the #1 cause of death for women and men in America, and it's important to make sure that we're focusing on that well-being that is so very important to our world, our families, and certainly our businesses if we're running and operating businesses as well. We are really excited and pleased to have a guest with us today, and I'd like to introduce her now, Theresa Genusa.
Hi.
Hi. We are very good on this beautiful Tuesday morning.
Yes, it is gorgeous.
You know, it doesn't feel like the end of February, does
No,
it?
spring.
Spring
Finally.
is hopefully
exactly.
around the corner, and
Yes.
we can look forward to that. So, Theresa, we'd love it if you would start us off by telling us about yourself, about your business, what you do as a life coach, and a core well-being dynamics specialist. That is a very intriguing title.
Okay, sure. I started this Genusa Coaching and Consulting around 3 years ago, and I started off with just being a life coach. And then I went on to add the well-being aspect of it because when I was out there and working with my clients, I seen what a need there was for the well-being aspect of it. There's this huge need for it. And then I went on to specialize in the stress because stress is just, it can be a killer. It's just horrible on the heart. It just does a lot to us with our bodies and our health and our minds. So I went on to specialize in the stress.
Okay,
That's
fantastic.
amazing. Yeah.
Well, it is something that is near and dear to us as well. As you know, we kicked off the month
Right.
with a focus on stress in
Sure.
particular. So it sounds like what you have is the best of both worlds, that you're looking at the individual and perhaps their tendencies,
Yes.
but then also coaching them in how they can improve their well-being. Tell us more about that.
Right. I coach them to empower themselves to get more aware of their well-being and of their health and to take control of it.
Okay. We can all use a little more of that.
Yeah,
I don't know
absolutely.
about
We've been
you.
talking about awareness. So, Theresa, can you tell us a little bit about what really brought you to wanting to help people be more aware of their well-being and their surroundings and how they handle stress? What really was your vision for your coaching business?
When I started with human behavior classes, and that's what drove me to wanting to coach.
Okay.
And my vision then went on to be to help everyone to become more aware of their well-being.
Okay.
Because I just seen such a need for it. I just think that there's a lot of unnecessary suffering just because of how people's thoughts are and how they do not understand how that relates to their health and what it can do to them. So when I got out there and really started coaching, I just really started seeing the need for it.
Okay.
And then really picked up on the stress. And then I also do a program that's health and well-being.
Okay, tell us about that.
Okay, I have a health and well-being that actually motivates others and empowers them to start taking control. Okay. To live different lifestyles, to pick up different lifestyles so that they can start taking control. And then I have a stress management class.
Okay.
And then I have a managing relationships and stress class.
Very good.
And they go on to programs also. So.
Okay. All right.
So do you offer those here in the Peoria area?
Yes, I'm
Okay.
just now really starting to get rolling with a couple of them.
Very good.
Yeah, I started off concentrating on the stress and then went on to add the health and well-being, and then have recently seen a need for the stress in relationships also.
Absolutely.
Also overeating pertaining to stress. I'm getting ready to work on a program for that too.
Okay. Very interesting.
Yeah, I
But I can
definitely.
see how it's all related. And
Yes.
today's topic is how to lead with presence. So that was a topic that appealed to you when you were looking at being a guest on the show. And I wonder if you'd tell us more about your perspective on presence and what are some of the things that you believe contribute to that or take away from presence. You know, how do you define it? All of those things.
Okay. I really think that it starts with mindfulness and being aware.
Sure.
Okay.
Good.
And in your first show you guys did, you done manage thoughts to manage stress. And you had spoke of mindfulness being the buzzword.
Sure.
And through these last couple years with me doing the research I've done, I have found that to be very true. Okay. And the business world, along with various individuals, are finding out what mindfulness does do for them and the benefits of it. So mindful meditation, as you had spoke so highly of, Cindy, has captured the attention of business leaders, okay, military commanders, and professional sports teams, and the list just kind of goes on and on.
I presented a workshop this morning on bringing more focus to your work through the power of mindfulness meditation. And I always bring up a slide that shows the logos of some of the various companies that are doing this mindfulness meditation and integrating it into it. And the Cubs are on there. And so,
Okay.
well, hey, it worked 2 years ago. It just didn't, you know, last year, hey, they still finished
Right,
very
exactly,
well.
right, exactly.
But the research is out there. It's no longer just something that sounds nice and is kind of mysterious or woo-woo.
Right, exactly, because it actually was brought to practice 30 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And
In
it
the
was,
mainstream, yes.
And it was brought to practice by a man named Eckhart Tolle. Have you guys ever read any of his material?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
No.
He's a highly influential German-born Canadian who has written exclusively on the subject. He has all kinds of books out there. They're good.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, the essence of mindfulness-based stress reduction and other related meditation techniques is to help you to get in the present, okay? To not be in the past, to not be in the future. So that brings you back to your question. It's just about being present and concentrating on one thing.
So mindfulness practice is a tool
Right.
that can help you to be more in the present.
Very much so. Very much so.
Okay. How does that work exactly in your experience when you work with clients? What have you seen happen for them when they practice
Meditation, okay, mindfulness. They just, if they work at it long enough and hard enough, they will tell me that it has changed their lives. Because I feel that it actually can rewire your brain. Not so much rewiring as just the neural pathways.
Right. We talked about that.
Yep.
Do you remember what that's called?
No.
She made fun of me when I shared it.
Okay.
But that's
Wait,
what
it's
I'm
coming
bringing
to
up
me.
again.
Tell me.
Okay.
Neuroplasticity.
Yes, I knew that.
Okay.
So, and the military
Right.
also uses it
Right.
for PTSD.
Okay, would be
People
wonderful for that.
who are
a lot of-
suffering from PTSD, they do a similar practice. So I know you said they were using it in military commands. Yes.
A lot of applications that are pretty fascinating. So the stress reduction piece, to me that makes sense.
Sure.
Because there's a calmness that can be associated with practicing mindfulness meditation too. And yet
Exactly.
it's more than that. You talk about people's thoughts. So tell us more about that connection.
Okay, well, one thing that we spend an enormous amount of time doing with our thoughts is thinking about the past, okay, and obsessing over the future. I mean, it's unbelievable how much time people spend there, okay? And we spend this time thinking about what isn't going on or what we think should be going on. We think about events that have happened in the future or what in the past or what we think is going to happen in the future. And it just takes away from being in the moment. And when
see that.
So when you're back here, okay, in the past, and that's where your thoughts are constantly, there's going to be anger there, all right? So many times we're beating ourselves up over things we've done in the past or decisions we made, or events that did happen. And then if we get over into the future too far, there's fear. I see that all the time. So this fear and this anger feed off of each other is what they do, all right? And then that's kind of just running in the background.
Sure. And I can see how that would be detrimental as a leader too, because people need a strong, solid leadership presence in order to be able to focus and accomplish the tasks of today.
Right.
So not being able to let go of your past or not worry about the future. The Lord tells us the worries of tomorrow will come. We need not worry about them anyway.
Right, exactly.
But not having that strong leadership or leading with that presence, you say, you know, dismissing the past and the future allows you to be present.
Right.
That's really necessary in today's society, especially with so many distractions.
So many demands, so much more information coming at us, and lots of things. We talked in that program a few weeks ago about the distractions that are presented in our world through technology, through those distracting thoughts that you have about the past or the future. And
See how that would affect a leader
That's,
greatly.
And that's where meditation comes in again, because it really does help to train you to get into just that moment.
I'm wondering, what do people come to you with as a concern? Do they come and say, I want to be a better leader? Do they come and say, I've got too much stress in my life? What are they coming to you for typically, or is there a typical situation?
Well, there's not really just a typical situation, but stress in general is who the ones seem to want me to help them with, is stress.
Well, and that's very telling. I mean, we shared statistics a few weeks ago in our program that centered on stress that were pretty astounding as to how much stress people report and from what sources. And some of it is that relationship with their immediate supervisor or coworkers. So that opportunity to lead with presence, do you think that could actually diminish an employee's stress if you have a leader who's leading with greater presence? So
most definitely.
So what's your perspective on that?
By focusing on the moment, all right, you have all energy that you need to do what you need to do, all right? Because if you're somewhere back here in the past, you're spending energy on that. If you're somewhere in the future, you're spending energy on that.
Sure.
So if you can just get in the moment, then you have all the energy you need to do what you need to do in that moment.
I love that you're using that word energy.
Yeah.
I mean, who wouldn't want to interact with someone who brings an energy? So it is that energetic presence.
It is.
It's that, not just the mental presence, but it's like one feeds the other. If you have the mental presence, then you're more likely to have the energy that's going to show up when you need it in the moment. So I'm thinking that that's going to improve quality of relationship, right?
Definitely.
Well, and quality of work.
And quality of work, too.
Sure.
I know I've read some information recently that talks about how, there's a lot of characteristics and abilities that people look for in leaders, but more and more people are saying that one of the number one important qualities that they want in a leader is presence.
Exactly. There is when I was doing my research on it, there is several different definitions of the word presence, okay? There's a little bit of a variation there. But the one thing that you will see every time, every definition of presence is authenticity. Right?
I couldn't agree more.
And and then you really are in the flow. That's you're being authentic. You have all your energy there, and then you're in the flow.
It's funny that you should bring that up, because I just saw this article in the paper over the weekend about imposter syndrome.
Yes, it is.
So you've heard of that?
Oh, yes. It was in my research.
And I've heard of it too. So just to quickly let our viewers know what this is in a nutshell, this is when, even though you have had a lot of successes or high performance moments in your life, you still have a strong sense of inadequacy. So you tend to let that be a mask and kind of cloud the real you showing up. You're always wondering, is it just around the corner that I'm going to show up, and how can people really believe in me and have faith in me? So imposter syndrome would rob you of your presence, right?
Right. And there isn't one single person that has not had presence. You can feel when someone's got presence. You feel it, you know it when they have presence. But there isn't anyone that has had it that at some times has felt that way, has felt fake.
Sure.
Okay? And the best way I seen it is when they was talking about actors and actresses and how they can really lead a business person into knowing how to do presence. And then they come back and they said, but how? Because one hand, you're saying authenticity to be present, and you're saying actors and actresses can teach me this as a business leader, but they're fake. They're being fake up there. They're acting. So then that's when it comes up to the point of, well, you want to think of roles. And at that time, you're being a leader. So your role at that time is a leader. So that's why you want to go ahead and bring your true self forward in that leadership. Or if you're being a parent, you're playing the role of a parent.
Okay.
Okay, so
that makes a lot of sense. I know one of the definitions that I've seen about presence is it's when you are calm and poised, grounded and centered. And I'll never forget the president of Robert Morris University, past president, Michael Violt. The first time I ever met him, it was his presence that influenced me to take the position that I had been offered to be a business professor there.
Okay.
It was the presence that I saw in him when he interacted with every single graduate. And this wasn't just a, hi, shake your hand, here's your diploma, congratulations. It was pause. You could feel the energy that he was exuding. You could see it in his demeanor, in his facial expression. And I saw it in him at one of the lowest points of the university, too, when, like every other higher education institution, we were struggling with the economic downturn and having to reorganize and downsize, cut positions, of course, that he was able to maintain that presence when he really, really needed it in order to tell people it's going to be okay. This is what we're going to have to do, though.
Well, in my opinion, that's another key to presence, is being able to connect authentically with where the person you're working with, whether it be a whole audience or whether it just be one person, you feel where they're coming from. If you're one-on-one, you're relating to that person that you're listening to's thoughts and feelings.
That's how I feel about this lady right here. And I told her that. I said, there was a presence about you when I first met you.
Yes.
And I believe that. It's because she's the real deal.
Right.
She's genuine.
Exactly,
you
yes.
know? Well, in your work, what techniques and strategies have you found to be really helpful?
I find it to work on them being themselves and knowing who they are.
Okay, so how do you do that?
I have an actual exercise that I use on them. Okay, we kind of start this way. And I tell them to think about how they define themselves. All right?
Okay.
And what makes them the happiest and the most productive. Right? Then I have them let me know when they think about it, and then let me know when they feel their natural self. All right? And then I have them go on to list their main strengths and where they apply them, where they apply these strengths. And when they have that right, then I have them go on and get to know what their values are. Okay?
Okay.
And then I feel that knowing who they are then protects them against worrying about what other people are thinking. So if they're not worrying about what other people are thinking, then they can be in the moment. They can be themselves.
That's one of the words of advice here was stop comparing yourself.
Right, exactly.
With this imposter syndrome.
Every single person is unique to who they are. And if you're going to try to be like someone else, then people will pick that up and sense that. And they just,
I agree.
That's why we should just try and be like Jesus.
yes.
That'd be the best one to go after.
Right, exactly, exactly.
Well, I know you've brought some other information with you this morning that you wanted to share about some of your perspectives with regards to leading with presence. So what have we not asked you yet that you want to share with our viewers today?
I think we went in a little bit to listening, but I don't know if we went enough into listening because I think that so many people, I think that's an issue. I think that so many people hear you, but they're really not listening to you.
Sure.
And then they end up not hearing, really understanding where you was coming from as a person.
Okay.
They end up kind of putting their own perspectives on it because they heard you, but they really weren't listening.
They had
to
their
you.
own thoughts going on in their head.
Right, because they weren't present. Right, exactly.
I've heard too that when we all bring to our world, it's part of who we are, biases, judgments, filters, mindsets.
Right.
And if we're seeing that other person through that lens,
Right, exactly.
what's your take on how that interferes with really listening?
They're just, in my opinion, they're just hearing. They really aren't listening because they are looking at you through their beliefs. They're picking up through the hearing. Okay, they're coming to their own perspective from their lens, which is so much to do with their beliefs and how they believe.
Such good information,
Instead of just listening to you and where you are coming from, because not everyone has the same beliefs. Like I said, we're all unique to who we are, and we all have something to bring.
Giving people the benefit of the doubt and offering them just a tremendous amount of grace. I know that I'm undeserving of all the grace I've ever been given in my life, and so it's only appropriate that I give others a tremendous amount of grace when I'm listening to them and really kind of assume, and I know lots of people stay away from that word, but assume that if I'm hearing something and it doesn't sit right with me, that probably wasn't their intention.
Right, exactly.
Right? They didn't mean, they probably weren't attacking me or meaning to offend me or trying to stir up or ruffle my feathers. So I'm just offering that tremendous amount of grace that I've been given throughout my life.
Right.
And just give them the benefit of the doubt. Right? Too often, I think people just jump to conclusions and say, oh, well, she said this or he said this. And if you just stop for 3 seconds and think, chances are they probably didn't mean that
at all. Right. Exactly.
Stop and think. That's a key, right? It's the power of the pause.
Right. Exactly. The power of the pause and taking the breath, you know, and just.
Sure. So that's
listening
calm. And not hearing. That's really powerful, Theresa.
It is. Okay.
Absolutely.
And so you always want to listen actively and stay in the moment, like we said, because doing that, you gain trust. You can get the right information or important information.
Sure.
You get allies and solutions that people will accept.
They'll buy into it because they've been heard and
they have
listened
been
to.
heard. People want to be heard.
Absolutely.
Well, I always tell my audiences in some of the workshops that I do, depending on the topic, but you know, when I'm talking about anything related to communication,
well, sure,
and how you're showing up in this world, one of the number one things that we all need and crave as human beings is to be valued and appreciated.
It is. It is.
And one of the number one ways I think I'm hearing you say that we can do that is by listening, mindful listening, right? Not just any old listening,
right?
But to be, you know, because if you're distracted by all these things, there's no way you can be in the moment and really present. Your body might be there, but your mind's somewhere else.
Exactly.
Right?
I found that when you're actually listening to, the conversations are usually shorter. So a lot of people don't want to listen because they think, oh, this is going to take so long.
Right.
But if you're actually listening, because people have that satisfaction of being truly, genuinely listened to,
right,
they might not need to talk as long.
Right, exactly.
It's amazing how much the higher level of understanding we
yes.
can gain from each other.
Right, exactly.
And if we expect other people to listen to us,
right,
we have to demonstrate that we are
willing to them.
Openly and mindfully listen to them as well.
Right, mindfully. That's the key. Be there in that moment, listening to them.
You know, I'm feeling sheepish because I can think of times when
Oh, me too.
And that's true, right? Don't our minds wander like half of our life, half of the time, but because
Right.
they're wired that way.
Right, exactly.
So, how do you teach someone and coach someone to bring themselves back when they do wander off? What are some things you've found helpful to teach people to do?
Just to stop and breathe and to pause. The other person doesn't really even have to know you're doing that.
Oh, I tell my kids all the time, I'm like, I'm sorry, I wasn't listening. Can you repeat that? And oftentimes they're like, oh, sure, I can repeat it. And when I just admit, like, I wasn't listening. So
Or that's
Be
very
honest.
possible too. Just, I mean, yeah, just say that. Exactly.
at least stop and pause better. Maybe I won't have to admit every time I'm not listening.
Right.
So,
Then kind of try to pick up, yes.
so that's great advice. So leading with presence, I think we've covered a lot here, is really about not being angry, not being fearful,
Right,
showing up
right.
and playing the role, and then really stopping to listen. And then when you're not listening, just mindfully bring yourself back on track.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so those are some really good tips on how to lead with present. I think we're all given the opportunity in our day-to-day life to be a leader, even if we're not necessarily a leader.
Exactly.
Right?
We
exactly.
are all leaders.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
You don't have to be in a company
You
to
don't
be a
want-
leader.
You don't have to have a title or a certain position.
Right. You're a leader as a parent.
Sure.
You're a leader if you go to a PTA meeting of your child. I mean, there's all kinds of leadership
Yeah.
that has nothing to do
Very
with the
good.
business.
Well, we've been talking with Theresa Genusa this morning. She is a life coach and core dynamic well-being specialist. I got that right.
Yes.
Yeah, that's very, very good.
It's such a powerful thing to say because having heard from you this morning, I can see all of that
Yeah,
and how it
absolutely.
does help with well-being. And we've been really honored to have you with us this morning and share such very useful, topical information. Very helpful. I know I've taken away some
Yeah,
information.
absolutely. Would
from
you mind
this
sharing with our
morning, too.
viewers how they can get a hold of you?
Okay. It would be Genusa Coaching and Consulting. And I have a website, theresagenusa.com. I have an email, teresa@theresagenusa.com. And I also have a telephone number of 309-713-3616. And that is at the office.
Okay, very good.
Fantastic. Well, it's been a great February focusing on individual well-being and workplace well-being with all of the topics we've covered. We have guest openings moving into the month of March,
Absolutely.
so we want to extend an invitation to you to contact Melissa and I at businessminds@email.com. Let us know if you're interested in being a guest. We still want to hear from you as to what topics you're interested in hearing about
Especially
on the show.
heading into the second quarter.
Right, you're heading into the second quarter with your businesses, and we want to hear from everybody in the business, not just the owners and the managers and leaders. If there are employees of businesses out there viewing in and listening to us, we want to hear from you as well. What do you want to talk about? What's on your business mind?
Absolutely.
We have our coaching opportunity to be on the show, or you can come on as Theresa did today as a guest coach, a guest expert, and she did such a great job with
Yes,
that.
thank you so much,
Oh,
Teresa.
thank you for having me. It's an
Yeah.
honor.
Please follow us on Facebook as well, the Business Minds Facebook page. And we wish you all the best. Enjoy this beautiful weather out there, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks
care.
very much.
PeoriaLife.com